Yo, what's going on YouTube? Hello to everyone in the chat and everyone watching on the VOD. This is your esteemed host, Shintigercurl, that dude, the Straw Hat, bringing you yet another session of Shintigercurl Streamin. Tonight, we're diving back again into the world of Western Immoren as we dig more deep into some more Warmachine lore. And tonight, hopefully, we'll be digging into the events of Oblivion, which I've mentioned before. But we're really going to dig into those events, and trust me, if you think the lore was crazy right now, you ain't seen nothing yet. But before that, before we do all this other stuff, you guys already know what time it is. Time to get out your guns, lock and load. It's time to shoot the shit. And as Hairball in the chat is wanting to do, we're going to talk about some Dynamite, because Dynamite happened last night. Got some pretty interesting events that happened. The first Dynamite post Wembley. Be some fun times. So the show starts off with the return of the Death Rider himself, one of the founding members of the BCC, Mr. Jon Moxley, coming out to his New Japan theme, looking like Kim Possible in his outfit, coming out very stern and very serious. Comes to the ring unannounced. Tony Schiavone gets up there and gives a small interview with him, and he says that he wants to actually talk to Darby Allin for some reason. What that talk is, we don't know. As he was leaving, Tony was given a small rundown of the show, and then was given a small rundown of the show when our boy made his return to the ring. Well, he didn't actually return to the ring. He never left it. He returned, and he got in Tony's face, and he said, "This isn't your company anymore." Cryptic. This might have something to do with the fact that this might be a way for them to work in the arrival of none other than Mr. Nike Jordans himself, the best in the world, Shane McMahon. This might be it, but there'll be other things to talk about as well. First match of the night was, of course, Hangman Adam Page taking on the conglomeration's own Tomohiro Ishii. Very hard-hitting match, very stiff, very nasty, just blows going everywhere. A very long and grueling match. Hangman would pick up the W. But before he could celebrate, the now former AEW World Champion, Swerve Strickland, comes out. Unfortunately, I don't think either of them will count as meat slapping meat yet. They're not big beefy guys. They gotta be. I know Ishii can throw hands, but I don't think he counts as big as a meaty man yet. Jury's still out. Anyway, Swerve comes out, obviously upset because he just lost his title, and he decides to get into Hangman's face. Two of them having probably the most violent and personal rivalry in all of AEW. And he says that, and Hangman says that Swerve has never been able to beat him on his own. He's always had help. He has always had stuff like that. And so they want him. He says if they fought one more time, no outside interference, Swerve could not beat him. So Swerve proposes a match for the next pay-per-view, which is in about another week and a half, that being All Out in Chicago, this time in a steel cage. Swerve talks about how after he lost that triple threat that he had with Hangman and Samoa Joe, and he pointed out accurately that Hangman tapped out not because he wanted to, not because he was getting choked out, but just because he didn't want Swerve to have the title. And he saw Swerve, and Swerve went to his house, which he was very familiar with, as we all know, and made mentions about Hangman being with his family. And he also makes mention about how, despite his obsession with Swerve, has cost him everything. While Swerve has reached to greater heights than anyone could have imagined he have gone, what has Hangman done? Just run around being an angry bastard. And he's like, which Hangman am I going to get? Hangman leaves, so we have our first set match for All Out. It's okay, man. Just I'll just keep it up for you. Also, We had a a four-way match as the members of the conglomeration, consisting of ROH World Champion, ROH World Champion, with Mark Briscoe. Sorry, I'm derping a little bit. Kyle O'Reilly, Orange Cassidy, and of course the new, now four-time FTW champion, Hook, taking on members of the Learning Tree, which is Chris Jericho, the Big Redwood, Big Bill, Bounty Hunter Keith Lee from Greens Point, Texas, hometown boy, and of course that tosser Roddy Strong. Let's see. Apparently Jericho is still mad at Orange Cassidy for ruining his coat several years ago. So we have this nice little multi-man match. Very good, very nice. In the end, I can't remember. Yeah, in the end, the conglomeration picks up the win, but they are still squabbing, and it appears that Hook's next opponent will be none other than the Undisputed Kingdom's Roddy Strong, as he looks to be gunning for the FTW title. Small celebratory. We have two small celebrations for the ladies, as Mercedes Moné congratulates herself for retaining against Dr. Britt Baker at All In. She was having a party when Private Party came in, and Isaiah tried to shoot his shot, but he was blocked by none other than the biggest Mercedes Moné thirst fan out there, Kazuchika Okada. Also, Mariah May came out looking especially hot, as she unveiled herself wearing the women's world title. Even got Tony Schiavone hot under the collar, and I will say, he was looking tasty. Also, Willow Nightingale says that after her and Ishii beat Stokes and Chris Statlander, that their match at All In for the AAA women's title, it's a AAA title that she's holding, it would be a Chicago street fight. It's gonna be fun. MJF comes out, obviously nursing his neck after taking the Tiger Driver from old Will Ospreay. Says that he is renouncing the United States, save for the most magical place on earth, Long Island. Says those people don't deserve him. That he was robbed of the title that he so earnestly deserved. And as he begins talking shit about Danny Garcia, Danny comes in, Pearl Harbors him, beats the crap out of him, teases a top rope pile driver, the same move that nearly took him out, but was stopped by CD and the rest of the officials, and he scurried away like a coward. Daniel got on the mic and he says that he is going to dedicate his entire life to robbing Maxwell Jacob Friedman of all the things that he holds dear and sacred. Says that he was the one who stole Max's beloved Dynamite Diamond ring, pawned it in New York City, used it to pay for a ticket all the way to London just so he could ruin Max's big moment in front of his mother, and he wants to keep ruining him. And in his own words, he says that ruining Maxwell Jacob Friedman's life is his fetish. It gives him purpose. So it's going to be him, and it's going to be Daniel Garcia and Maxwell Jacob Friedman at All Out in Chicago in a week and a half. Good promo from Daniel Garcia. I'm glad he's sticking around. We need him grinding those beans. Jamie Hayter. Just, why is Jamie Hayter? Why is she? She made her triumphant return, putting down the protege of Saraya. Her revenge against the Outcast for costing her world title last year is only just begun. Now, this is before Toni Storm became Timeless Toni Storm. There's that. Speaking of, we haven't seen hide nor hair of Timeless Toni Storm since he lost the belt. Main event time. Tell that to Toni Storm, man. Tell that to not Toni Storm. Tell that to Jamie Hayter. Anyway, main event time. As Ricochet makes his AEW in-ring singles debut on Dynamite against the Don Callis family's own Kyle Fletcher. This was not a squash match. It was a very competitive matchup. Fitting because Kyle Fletcher is Kyle Fletcher. He's awesome. And we really got to see what Ricochet could do, unleashed, as dear friend TWK would say. He looked great out there. And he, of course, picked up the win as he is wont to do. And then all comes out an old familiar face that Ricochet hasn't seen in well over a decade. That's right. Will Ospreay comes out, microphone in hand, international title on his waist. And just before he's about to speak, the Bastard Pack jumps him from behind, tells him that he welcomes Ricochet to AEW, but tells him to get to the back of the line because Will Ospreay is his, because they have a match at All Out for the international title. There's that. Main segment time, as the American Dragon, Bryan Danielson, your new AEW World Champion, comes out. And he's made it about discussing his future. He talks about how he made his promise to his daughter Birdie, about how he's ready to be a family man. But not just yet. He plans on not abdicating the belt and going into retirement. No, he is going to defend that title as long as he is physically able. But he does make a caveat that on the event that if and when he does lose the belt, that's it. His career is over. He is done. He is hanging it up for good. So whoever beats him for the world title will not only become AEW champion, but will forever be known as the man who retired the greatest wrestler in the world, Bryan Danielson. Danielson says that there are so many hungry guys back there, he'll give a title shot to any of them because they're so young and hungry. And he says, first come, first serve. Whoever wants a slice can get a slice at All Out. And unsurprisingly, the Scapegoat appears on the Titantron. He says that nobody wanted him back, no one believed in him, so he decided to believe in himself. And what a year he's had. He beat up Tony Khan. He took out Kenny Omega for a long time. He beat Bryan Danielson after being set on fire in that Anarchy in the Arena match, and he just defended the TNT title in Darby Allin's signature match, burying him. And now he's about to do the same to the Dragon. But before anyone can say anything, Dragon gets Pearl Harbor by the Scapegoat, and he holds up both titles. So it looks like we have our main event as the Scapegoat prepares to take on the Dragon at All Out. Good show overall. Sets up a lot of storylines. Also, forgot to mention, got a sighting of Jon Moxley, as he talks about that no one around here has any manners, and he proceeds to beat up some random dudes. And aiding him in this endeavor is none other than Roddy Strong's wife, Miss Marina Shafir, who I barely recognize. I'm like, who is this big, beefy woman? And then Excalibur says, that's Marina Shafir. And I'm like, she doesn't look the same as she was before. Hopefully she's gotten better in the ring. I've been very critical of Marina Shafir. Also, other news. John Cena went on Shay's podcast and caught a lot of flack from some people whose opinions don't really matter, stating that he does not have any intentions of having children because he feels that it does not have a place in his life to have kids. And to him, I say, kudos to him. I understand the feeling because I myself do not want kids. Not that I hate children. I love my nephews. I enjoy having them. They're going to be hanging out with me this weekend. I'm just not gonna financially or mentally ready to have a kid. And people were catching hell and calling Cena selfish and calling him a bad man and saying that he should have kids. And I explained to him, and I was just telling them, I gave them a perfect analogy. And this pretty much shut them up, if they knew anything about wrestling. So in their minds, having a kid makes you a man. So I guess Aurelian Smith Sr. is a greater man than John Cena. Anybody, in case you don't know who that is, Aurelian Smith Sr. is the legal name of one Grizzly Adams. And he had a lot of kids, 3 of which became wrestlers. One became Sam Houston, one became Rockin' Robin, and one became Jake the Snake Roberts. And anybody who's watched Dark Side of the Ring or knows anything about pro wrestling knows the kind of monster that Aurelian Smith Sr. is, or was, and what he did to his kids, and what he allowed to have done to his kids. But in these people's minds, simply for the fact of him having kids, makes him a better man than John Cena, who decided that he wasn't going to bring kids into the world that he couldn't properly care for. And I'm just going to say this. I know, Hairball, you're a dad. I'm not saying that having kids is a bad thing or anything like that. I'm not calling you a terrible guy. I'm not saying anything of the sort and down at anyone who has kids. I'm just saying that having a kid does not make you a parent. Raising that kid and loving them makes you a parent. Not every person who has a kid is a parent. That is a fact of life. I know a lot of people in my life, one in particular who, yep, thank you, Brother Ball, thank you. Nothing wrong with that decision. But there's people in my life that I know, or I knew, who have kids and who are terrible parents. Yes, case in point, I'm not going to put your business out there, Hairball. I know all about your situation, and yeah, I'm gonna touch that. I'm gonna touch that. That's not my place to say, but he understands. And there's a certain woman, if I ever see her, I would be very tempted to bash her face in with a brick for what she did to some kids that I consider children, my own kids at this point. And I'm not even going to get into that, but needless to say, she should not have had kids. She should not be a mother. That having kids does not make you a parent. That is, if that were true, then Nick Cannon and Cam Newton would be the greatest men in the entire country. Thank you. I gladly take the bricks. Yeah, you got 2 guys who just go around making children and not really caring for them or being a present father, and they're all with different women. That doesn't make you a father. That just makes you a guy who gets people pregnant. It takes more than that to be a parent, and even I know that. He got about 6 from last time I checked, and he says he wants more, all with different women. He said this in an interview, and he's been catching flack, rightfully so, because him and Nick Cannon are just treating kids like, yeah, goddamn, even Tariq Hill is doing it. Just because you can have kids doesn't mean you should. And that's just my take on it. I'm not trying to dissuade people from having kids. People are and I used to get this shit all the time. I used to have family friends. My best friend used to tell me, "You should have kids, man. You should just have kids. Kids are great. Just have kids." And I'm like, and I tell them, why are you so focused on me having kids? What personal stake do you have in me procreating, or my choice not to procreate? If I do have kids, will you take care of them? Will you babysit them? Will you feed them? Will you clothe them? Will you give them advice when they ask for advice? Will you be there on their first day? Will they be there when they say their first words or take their first steps? Or will you teach them how to ride a bike, or how to dress themselves, or how to shave, or how to shoot a ball, or about how to throw a ball, or all this other stuff that parents should do? No. You're not going to be there? Well, then I'm just going to quote the late, great Richard Pryor and say, have a Coke and a smile and shut the fuck up. Yeah, there's that. Also, I just want to say that as a board game nut, I am very happy this next month because the first and only board game I ever backed is about to finish production, and the first copies will be sent out to all the backers. I backed up to the mid-level, so I'll be getting some very quality good stuff. I technically I bought it last year for $150. It's called Ascendancy 4X. I backed it, so it's not them. So when I say I technically bought it, I meant that I backed the game when the Kickstarter went live, because that's in case you don't know, in board gaming circles, typically people who want board gaming stuff, they usually have Kickstarters, and they give like tiers for people depending on how much they support the board game being made. This one, it went live last year. I've been actually following the production of this game for a long time, and I made a promise to myself that once it goes live, I was gonna support it. I dropped $150 on it, so that means that once production is done and all the kinks and all the stuff is yeah, it's kind of like that, yeah, but it's for more independent sources. Like there are some big companies that do it, but they don't necessarily have to do it. But for like independent and first time game publishers, they do stuff like this. So hopefully by the end of this month, the only thing I need to pay for it is shipping, and so I'll have it in my possession. I've been wanting this game for years and years and years and years, and now I'm gonna have it either if not in September, then definitely in October. And I'll definitely do an unboxing video for it because I really need to do that. I promised to do the Matthew Meeple. That's the guy who's the lead designer for it. I said I was going to do an unboxing for it, and I'm going to keep that promise to him. He's actually a pretty cool guy, and I really enjoy his stuff. If you want to see there is some playthrough of the game in its beta version on channels like Slicker Drips, like the Dice Tower did one. The Game Rules channel, the Brothers Murph did a video on it, and they all say it's a great game. It had some kinks, but then again, this was the beta, so it would be stuff. Oh, that's good, man. I wish I could back a lot more stuff from other stuff. There are other games that I kind of want to back, but I just don't have the money, especially now. Hence why I'm doing all this. So yeah, expect that in the future, doing a nice unboxing for Ascendancy 4X. And I won't do a playthrough of the video. I don't have the equipment to do full-on playthroughs of it. So there's that, yeah. And outside of that, no One Piece this week because Oda's taking a break. As this is his time for his monthly break. He always takes a break once a month. Yeah, we already talked about Sid in the last video. So yeah, rip Sid. Fun fact, the first person he ever powerbombed after that horrific leg injury he suffered in WCW was none other than Sami Zayn. Yeah, that's Sami Zayn. And also one of his first matches back after that injury was against the Mad King himself, Eddie Kingston. Yeah, rip Sid. All right, so with that out of the way, I think it's time for us to move on to the stuff that we're going to talk about tonight. Law, you know what to do. Hit me up. Hold on, I got to set my. Yeah, it wasn't a long match. It was like a couple of minutes, but yeah, even the master and the ruler of the world took on the king of the bums. I saw the clip. Yeah, it's real. And knowing Eddie being the big wrestling mark that he is, he probably thinks that was the greatest thing in the world, next to wrestling Satoshi Kojima. So anyway, Law, help us out here. Thank you, Law. All right, as you can see on the screen, we're going to be doing one faction, and then we're going to finally dig into Oblivion. I've mentioned this in the last ones before about how all of this was pre-Oblivion. It's because this event was massive. It changed and unveiled a lot of lore that happened in the world of Warmachine and Hordes. So before all the Oblivion stuff happened, everything I've told you over the last 2 streams, all of it was like the information we had about what the history of the world was like. Oblivion pretty much changed all that. But before we get to Oblivion, we have one more faction that I didn't get a chance to get to, and it's this one. Say hello to the Convergence of Cyrus. And they don't have a map, at least I don't think. This is just all story fluff and stuff. But yeah, the Convergence. All right, that's their symbol. The Convergence are basically a cult that is dedicated to the Maiden of Gears, the goddess Cyrus, who is actually also a moon that orbits around Cain. Now, the Convergence, as they're called, are fervent believers who are basically scientists, theologians engineers, basically anything that deals with science and the study of knowledge. That's what the convergence is all about. They worship in their they technically worship in their own in their workshops and their laboratories. That's how they worship. Those are their churches, workshops and laboratories and what have you. uh Cyrus herself does not require you to have a strong faith. So long as anyone engages in any kind of scientific endeavor, she will best their favor on. And that's what basically the convergence is. They're not a new group. They've been sort of like been a small shadow group underneath society at large in Western Immoren. Like every major scientific endeavor and scientists for the last 700 years were probably had some connection to the convergence. They've been even working for them willingly, or were approached later on to join them covertly. Now they're not evil. They're just a bunch of scientists worship a maiden of gears. Now, it's only recently that their existence has really come to light, and they have been and their technology. And I would just say this: for a human group, their technology rivals even that of the Iosans' technology, and that's saying something considering how high up on the technological tree the elves are. And there was a major reason for that. The reason being is because the convergence was able to do something that everyone thought was impossible. They achieved something similar to immortality. This is actually a cosmological map of the cosmos, and this is how their hierarchy works. They don't work in hierarchies; they work in orbits. And let me zoom in further. So, here at the center is, of course, Cyrus herself. Then we have the Cipher Engine, which is one of their greatest works. Then we have the Constellation, which is another higher ups for them. We have the Divine Architect. This is the priesthood over here, led by the Iron Mother. We have Forge Masters, Clockwork Vessels, and Awakened Guardians and Workers. And what they did, what the Convergence was able to do, was they were somehow able to transfer a person's soul and consciousness out of their material body and into a clockwork body. They essentially were able to cheat death in a way, as they were able to find a way to transfer a person's mind into a clockwork vessel. So there's that. And this was a monumental thing to do. So the vast majority of the warcasters for the convergence are actually people who were given the gift of being able to transfer their consciousness over into a clockwork body. So there's that. Let's see. There's a lot of stuff to go through, and unfortunately, I just don't have the time for it. But needless to say, they're actually a pretty cool faction. And here are their warcasters. We have Aurora Newman of Areogenesis. Yep, that's her. Axis, the harmonic enforcer. The Iron Mother, the directrix, and her exponent servitors. This is the undisputed leader of the convergence herself. As you can see, she has made the transfer over into a clockwork vessel. We have Father Lucan, the divinity architect, another one blessed to transfer his consciousness into a clockwork vessel. Forge Master Syntherion. I've seen people play with this guy. He's pretty cool. Also another bit of crossover lore here. It is revealed that Aurora herself, this girl is actually the daughter of another prominent warcaster, specifically from Signar. Yeah, this is her father, the smartest man in Immoren, the smartest man in the Iron Kingdoms, Sebastian Nemo. That's her father. And before you ask, he fathered her before her mother decided to make the old transfer and switch into a clockwork body. So yeah, there's some good stuff there. All right, we're gonna skip forward. Now you gotta understand, similar to the Cricks and the Iosans, they don't have warjacks in the conventional sense. They have what they call vectors, and they have a very interesting gameplay mechanic where they can share focus. And a lot of them don't even need a warcaster to operate. As long as they have focus on themselves, they can operate independently. They just need to gain focus regularly, and they can actually keep and store focus. Where in other warjacks and what have you, if they need focus, you need to allocate focus from the warcaster to the specific warjack, and the warjack then uses that focus to do stuff like move and fight or fire weapons and stuff like that. But if they don't use it, then the focus gets lost. With the convergence, however, because of their unique abilities, they can allocate the focus to their warjacks, to their vectors, and their vectors won't lose it. They can keep it indefinitely until they use it. And what's more, they can even give that focus transfer the focus from one vector to another, leading to a lot of shenanigans you can do with vectors, which made them highly unique and very advanced. So we got the Colorari, I think I'm pronouncing that right, the Diffuser, the Galvanizer. You can just tell that the vectors are a world apart from regular ass warjacks and helljacks and what have you, just from how they look. Like all other warjacks and what have you have a vague humanoid appearance. These are just going for utility. They don't need to look human-like to do their jobs. They can, they just don't need to. We got the Assimilator. We have the Cipher, the Conservator, the Inverter, a Modulator, the Monitor, and no, we're not talking about DC Monitor. Get out of here. Next we have their own colossal, the Prime Axilon. It's a better picture of it. Yeah. They don't have much because they were relatively new before Oblivion happened, so they don't have as many they don't have many vectors or warcasters as the other more established groups. And now we have the soldiers, and of course we have Clockwork Angels. We have the Eradicators, the Obstructors, the Optifex Directive, yep, the Replicators, the Reductors, the Defortors, the Transverse Enumerator, I think I'm getting that right, the Accretion Servitors, the Anomalous Dispersion Optiflex, damn, these names are hard to say, the Advent Servitor, the Elimination Servitor, the Enigma Foundry, yeah, that's really creepy, the Reflex Servitor, Steel Soul Protector, alright, this is a long one, the Transfinite Emergence Protector, and Permutation Servitor. Yeah, that's a battle engine. Yeah, that's a battle engine. And that's it for the convergence. Very fun group. Very fun. Now, it's time. It's time we move on to Oblivion. All right. Now, Oblivion, one of the most important events in the history of Western immoren, if not the most important. Now, this first part right here is told from the perspective of an elf by the name, whose name is long since forgotten. He calls himself the Hermit of Hingehold. Now, Hingehold is an area that will be very, very important in the events to come. And he is a seeker. Like Lady Ayana, he too left the borders of Ios in search of the Iosan gods. Now, here's the deal. The Hermit of Hingehold, he actually learned more than he wanted to know, so it kind of drove him a bit mad. And let me see if I can't find a picture of him in this. Nope, no picture. All right. Oh, wait a minute. I completely forgot a faction. Now, they're not a faction per se, but they're very important to the story overall. And I need to find them again. All right, where are you? Uh, dang it, I don't have it anymore. I had to. This is from my old computer, and I cannot find the I can't find the particular faction. It's not a faction per se, but they are a group unto themselves. So I'll have to get back to that when I find the book again. So we're just gonna wait for that. But yeah. So the hermit actually learned of the true history of everything that has happened in Western Immoren since time immemorial. And what he learned was such that he nearly was driven mad. And so it caused him to actually go around to various factions across all of Immoren and giving a dire warning of a massive catastrophe that is about to take place. Now, this is what yeah, I'm going to explain this in a bit. So I'll just get to I'm going to explain this. Now, this is the history as told by the Hermit of Henchhold. And if you want to hear the full thing, I actually have a compilation video of the Hermit's entire dialogue speech about him explaining the true history of Western Immoren to you folks, called the Hermit of Henchhold Speaks. I have individual videos on it now, so I have a compilation that I just dropped a couple of days ago. Give that a watch if you're very interested. So, this is the true story. This is the true history of the history of Cain and Western Immoren. So prepare yourselves. Now, up to a point, everything that I said about the creation mythos of Menoth, Dunia, and the Devourer Worm, that is true. What they don't, and about the whole them going to Urcain and creating the war of souls between their various followers. But what you didn't know was that Urcain wasn't the only thing that was out there in the other world. Around the almost infinite expanse of Urcain, even beyond the Veld and the other religious aspects, there was a darkness, a pronounced darkness that existed on the very edges of the afterlife. This darkness was home to beings of unfathomable power and influence, beings whose currency and food were souls. These beings were simply called the Infernals. Now, the Infernals were very well aware of they were found up this realm, this physical plane called Cain, where these humans and other mortals have these souls. Souls are, and of course, like I said, their entire thing is eating and consuming souls. And they couldn't get to Cain because the walls, dimensional barriers between Cain and Urcain are especially thick. And even as powerful as they are, they couldn't breach those barriers. But they could eat souls from from those who have passed on. And so those who were not so specific souls, like those who worship the twins or worship Menoth or worm worshippers, were picked off by these Infernals. And the Infernals were always a constant threat, but the gods of Immoren never told anybody about them because they didn't want to scare folks. They just didn't freak folks out. Now, while they couldn't outwardly, now the Infernals were not a unified race or a unified faction. There were actually orders and cabals within the Infernals order, within the Infernal races, and they all had their own different agendas, their own different goals, but they all wanted the same thing: access to souls. Now, while they did try to mess with Menoth and the Worm for a bit, they found they had an easier time going up against the Divine Court and in the Veld. And the Divine Court, while they were able to beat back the Infernals for however long they were able to do so, they knew that eventually the Infernals were going to get into the Veld. and they wouldn't be able to stop them. And so they came up with an idea, a plan. They would have to sacrifice the Veld for their own survival and the survival of their race. Now, keep in mind, the Veld wasn't just the area for where the gods reside, where their gods resided. This is also the heaven for elves on Cain, because they were created by them. Get me? So they decided that the best way to they couldn't outwardly defeat the entirety of an infernal order, but they could try to avoid them. So this was their plan. And their plan was the Bridge of Worlds. This is the real reason why the Eosin gods wanted to leave the Veld and tarry amongst their creations. Not just because they felt like they wanted to be with them, but as a means of protecting themselves. Because they knew that as powerful as the Infernals were, they couldn't directly cross over into Cain. So they created the Bridge of Worlds in hopes that they would go to Cain, be with their people for a while. The Infernals would break into the Veld, eat whatever souls that were there, realize that the gods were gone, and leave the Veld for better pastures, or just because they got tired. And then once they felt that the Infernals had left, the Divine Court would go back on the Bridge of Worlds and return to the Veld. And then we all know what happened. The whole thing blew up, and it nearly wiped out the entire Infernal race, the entire Elven race. Now, they were only the gods themselves only were going to stay on Cain for a relatively short amount of time, but they had no way to get back. They didn't have the resources to build another Bridge of Worlds, and even if they could build one in Cain, they still needed someone to operate the other half of the Bridge of Worlds, or create another Bridge of Worlds in your Cain. So they were kind of boned, and the reason why they left the Eosin elves, left the elves to their business, because their powers were waning in the material world, and they had to find a way to get home, because there were points in Cain where the barrier between life and death was very, very weak. So they figured they wanted to look for these weak points. Now, fast forward a couple of centuries to the ascension of the twins, Mar and Tamar, and they instantly became aware of the Infernals and knew that they were not to be trifled with. They kept to themselves. Fast forward even more, and we go to the Orgoth occupation. Now, the Orgoth were not just oppressive to the humans of immoren on a physical level. As I mentioned in the previous video, they were oppressive to them on a spiritual and level by taking their souls after they die and using them for their own ends. And they were indiscriminate. They didn't care who you worshipped. It didn't matter if you were a Menite, Morrowind, Thamorite, or worm worshiper. If they could kill you, they would take your soul and they would use it and literally own you even in your death. So Tamar went to her brother, who had the power of prescience. He could see into. She asked him under a banner of peace to say, "Brother, what's going to happen to our?" And he basically didn't mince words with her. He said, "We're fucked. Humanity on Immoren is fucked. Our religions will fall. We will have no more souls. Our followers will go to the wayside. Humanity will cease to exist on a level that we can't even stop." And for a while, the two siblings, who were at odds with each other since their ascension, had to begin working out plans for how they were going to, survive this. And no matter what they thought up, no matter what they did, even if with their own archons and ascendants, even with their direct intervention, even with the direct intervention of Menoth and the Worm and all the other gods that they could get their hands on, it wouldn't be able to save them. Humanity would still be screwed, because the Orgoth were just that brutal and just that oppressive and masters over such primal magic like soul magic. And so she thought. Then Tamar came up with the idea. What if humans developed the power to use magic? Now, remember when I said that before the gift of magic appeared, humans had never used magic. Like, they could make powerful spells or what have you, but they were not inbred magic users. Morrow looked into the future and said, if humanity learned magic, it was a way for them to survive and maybe overcome the Orgoth. But simply giving humans the gift of magic is not easy. It was borderline impossible on a cosmological scale because it was so hardwired into their creation that they not use magic. It's not something that you could just give, even from gods like them. And so Tamar decided that she was going to use all of her resources and all of her knowledge and all of her servants to find a way to give humans magic. He began using her agents on immoren to try to find some documentation, some level of wisdom, something, anything that will help them, if give them magic. You understand what I'm saying? But they could find nothing. Then she decided that she was going to find somebody in the Iosan Elves, seeing as how they were one of the longest lived races there, and that she approached them through one of her agents, but they were like, "No, your problem. You deal with it. We got our own problems to deal with," because they're still looking for their gods. And it is during this time period that she really learned more about the Infernals, and moreover, she actually learned of where the Iosan gods were. So she decided that the only way to help that humanity was going to survive this was to go to the Infernals. So she went to the edges of the abyss and got into contact with one of the cabals of the Infernals, the Lunacarinian Order. And she beseeched them, and she's like, I need your help. You guys are powerful. You can probably do things that I probably can't do. I need you to help us give humans the gift of magic. This is within your power. The Order considered this, and they said, yes, it's within our power, but we're not going to do this for free. We need... All right, welcome back. I'm just getting back to the true history of Western Immoren and the Infernals. So, Tamar, as I was saying, the Infernals are just these beings that hunger for souls on the very edges of Urkane, and they're the reasons why the Divine Court went to Kane itself, because they want to avoid them. But anyway, the Order said, okay, we'll do this, but we're not going to do this for free. We need payment. And she asked, how much? And they said, a third. Like, what? A third of all human souls on Immoren. That's her payment. And a third of human souls would be millions of humans dead. Just millions of them dead. Their souls ripped from their bodies and to be owned and consumed by the Infernals. Tamar was like, this would be catastrophic. But she also knew that without the gift of magic, humanity will not survive. So she decided that, okay, you got a deal. Third of human souls, they're yours. And then she said, you know what? I'll sweeten the deal. I want you to do this as fast. Normally, it would take centuries for this to happen, but she sweetened the deal. Okay, I'll sweeten the deal, guys. If you can do this within a couple of generations, in exchange for this, I'll tell you where the Divine Court is, and you can do whatever you want with it. The Order, now the Infernals, they've been thirsty for the Divine Court since they left. So this was a boon to their Order. Like, you got a fucking deal, all right. So she told them where the location was, and they took the location, and she went back to her brother and said the deed is done. And he's like, I don't approve of this, but we ain't got no choice. A third is better than none. It's rather to lose a third of humanity than all of it. So, cut back to several centuries ago. The Divine Court finally found a thin enough barrier between Kane and Urkane, and they were trying to go back. Then the Infernals attacked them, and they fought hard. They fought harder than you could ever be. It was a battle of biblical proportions, a battle that no one knew took place. But regardless, the Infernals were too many, They were too powerful, and the divine court themselves had been so weakened, not just from being in the world of the living for so long, but having had their powers severely reduced because of the catastrophe. And they knew it was already over. They knew that it was going to be dead. So actually, they were actually planning to make Skyra herself. She was actually going to be the new leader of the divine court, but they lost the helm of their former leader in the abyss. So Nicator and Skyra were the only members of the divine court to have survived. All the other gods, they're dead. They were killed by the infernals, and they were just eaten. And this resulted in the riveting. This was why all those Iosan leaders and what have you. That's why they went crazy and started killing themselves. That's why because they subconsciously sensed that their gods were dead. And this is also the reason why so many elves were being born without souls. This is the right of the soulless, because their gods don't exist anymore. So when Skyra made her way to Ios all those years later, she was barely alive, hence why she's in a coma. So after this happened, and after taking many generations, the Infernals were able to finally give humans the gift of magic at a great cost to themselves. And and we all know what happened. They used the gift of magic led to the Orgoth rebellion, which allowed them to push the Orgoth out and get them out of there. And Thamar was happy about this, but she knew it was only a matter of time. A clock was ticking. The Infernals did not say when they were going to take the we're not going to say when they were going to take the lives. This became known as the claiming. They just said, "I'm going to take those lives, and there's nothing you can stop it." Thamar spent centuries trying to figure out a way to either mitigate the cost or outright just avoid paying the costs. And the Carinian order knew this, and they were like, "No, we're not going to take anything less than what we want." And so this all leads up to this moment, and this is in the book. So this is the book I'm reading it from. This source book for Oblivion, and all of this is being told from the perspective of the Hermit of Henchhold. Now, the Infernals. There are many characters in now. This was all like a one big cataclysmic event. Like, this was the event to end all events in this one. It just came out of nowhere. And a lot of major characters in a lot of factions that were introduced in this in the story were actually secret Infernals. One of them was August Midwinter, that old guy with the staff who was a witch hunter. He was a secret Infernal. He was an Infernalist. And the Order of Illumination was one of the few that were trying to fight back against Infernals. And so, actually, the entire event was told on Twitter via piecemeal, with events taking place. I'm not going to go in. I don't have access to those anymore. But needless to say, it was always exciting reading, and it was so much was just going on. And once everything happened, the Infernals came on Kane in droves. They were able to punch through the walls, and they were just like, "We're here for what we're owed." And it was hell. This was literally the Warhammer equivalent of Ragnarok, of Apocalypse, of the end of the world. The entirety of immoren, both east and west, were plunged into this absolute chaos that was the claiming. They were dealing with extremely powerful beings who just did not seem to die. And you have alliances that you never thought you'd see. Like, literally every faction in this entire game were coming together to try to fight these motherfuckers. But before all this, the Hermit just kept going to these different factions, and he was warning them, like, "Hey, shit's about to get real. You need to get ready." Some believed him, most didn't. They all believed him now. And it was a climactic battle. We saw Laulis working with Kador, Kador working with the Crix, Crix working with Signar. We saw Scorn working with the Elves. We saw the Legion jumping into this. It was absolute chaos. And during this whole thing, Sebastian Nemo was critically wounded protecting the capital city of Caspia from Signar. But then agents for the Convergence of Cyrus took his body and brought it to one of their churches. And they had his mind removed from his body and placed inside of a clockwork body because they wanted they needed his mind. And they had actually been working on something called the Great Project, which is like this big scientific project that was going to change the very face of Kane. And what they did was they actually built a fucking Stargate. And the Stargate was at the place called called Hinchhole. And while all this was going on, all the gods of Ios, I mean all the gods themselves were directly involving themselves in this. This was all hands on fucking deck. And these were the main infernal masters. We got Agathon, the voice of darkness. And this is this guy. Look at him. Other names: Aphoteph, Ashoff, Alphorus, Althoninton, Libalon, Gilfolion, also known as the Dream Ender, the Reaping Herald, the Packbinder, the Shadowmaker, the Taker of Names. Look at those names. This is the guy who originally created the pact between his order and Thamar. So he's the one who orchestrated this entire thing. He's the one who came up with the claiming. Then we have Osmodamos, the Black Gate, also known as Balthoth, Gishidan, Nabumask, Oronox, Osradoth, also known as the Bringer of Sorrows, the Keeper of the First Horror, the Reaper, the Unmaker at the Threshold. This guy is basically the beat stick. He was just going around challenging the best of the best that immoren could throw at him, and then breaking him on his fucking knee like his name was Bane. He looks like a fucking demonic Bane. Then we got Zatharoth, the Weaver of Shadows, also known as Nira, Sapati, Zapharoth, Devarax, Zirath, and Zolquinklin, also known as the Tyrant of the Unhallowed, the Executioner of Debts, the Gracious Obliteration, the Judge of all Truths. She represents the seductive side of the Infernals. She's the one who makes all these dark promises to their subjects, like, this for me, and we will grant you life and power. She is the voice of seduction, of greed. And these are their horrors and greater horrors. And you can see this. Look at this. This is just apocalyptic shit. And these are the cultists, all those who serve them, and many of and this is this right here is a list of notable Infernals who helped make the claiming possible, and they were all over. This is Master Preceptor Orin Midwinter. He used to be this is the witch hunter who used to work for Venter. He had rot lung, like tuberculosis, and he made a pact with them to save his own life. Then we have the great princess Regna Gravanoi, the White Queen. She was a potential candidate to rule over Kador, and she sold out the Kadorans just so she could rule over whatever was left. Then we have Valken Hawk, the Fallen Knight. His story is dangerous. Then we have Erlich Geertry, the Dark Seeker. Now this guy, there's actually a massive a short story about him, how he was brought in to serve for a murder that took place in the Undercity underneath Caspia. And he was sort of seen like a comic relief sort of guy until he revealed himself to be a fucking Infernal. Then we had Ashlyn Runewood, the Lord of Ash. Let me see, I think he was in Signar. Yeah, he was in Signar. Runewood. I'm gonna try to find him. No. I can't find him, but nevertheless, he was actually a human. He was actually a human. He was a prominent warcaster. Very cool individual. He was a secret infernal. Nicaea, Hound of the Abyss, and she was actually a member of Signar. And the reason why she turned on, or not Signar, of the Protectorate. The reason why she turned against them is because and I'll read it here. Once a devout and zealous member of the Daughters of the Flame, Nicaea was known as the Tear of Vengeance, bringer of swift death to all enemies of the Protectorate. Her skill was nearly unmatched. Her dedication to the cause was so consuming that Feora, the priestess of the Protector of the Flame, considered her the natural successor to lead the Daughters of the Flame should anything fall of Thyria. Unbeknownst to all around her, Nicaea's fervor became less about serving the lawgiver and more about taking vengeance on those who killed her beloved husband, Heltus. Darkness in her soul drew the attentions of infernal agents who saw her in her an opportunity to make inroads in the Protectorate. Using no small amount of resources, they orchestrated an assassination attempt against an Signaran officer known for taking part in the invasion of Seul. Nicaea took the bait, and after eliminating her target, the cultists made their move. Having already converted another daughter whom Nicaea knew and trusted, they convinced her to come with them and to listen to their words. Among them were arcanists who were given powers over the mind, and they filled her head with visions of Heltus, who claimed Menoth knew her heart was impure and would never allow the couple to be rejoined in the city of man, which is Menite heaven, in Urkane. Struck by what she learned, Nicaea slipped into madness. He was convinced the Infernals were her only course to meet her husband, who already had gone to them, and who might restore his life if she did as she asked. So yeah, this is what they did. Yeah, the art is killing it. Again, the art is killing it. I'll just read some more of how these people fell. Let's go with Runewood. No man served as a more cautionary tale of the perils of the infernal manipulations than Alan Runewood, who has long been an Archduke of the East Midlands and the Lord of Farin. Once counted amongst the most courageous and loyal vassals of King Leto Ralthorn, Runewood became entrapped by binding arrangements that forced him to betray his nation and fight alongside the invaders. He did not knowingly begin down this path and only recognized the extent of his errors when he was too late to reverse them. Some say his actions do not merely constitute treason against his beloved nation, but betrayal of his very humanity himself. Let's see. Nowhere in the more potential scope of infernal corruption is more evident than Elish Gregory, the once affable arcanist of the Blackwater Irregulars mercenary company. Those who once were his friends and allies cannot believe how far he's fallen in such a short amount of time. Elish still sees in the mirror the man he once was. When speaking to outsiders, his charm can return, allowing him to present a smiling face to those who moments later are overwhelmed by his power, with a thirst for hidden knowledge that took him down a path of disgrace and degradation. He made bargains with unspeakable beings and bound himself fully to their service. Worst, he has done truly evil and killed good people. Orin Midwinter. Orin Midwinter is a man who has gone through several transformations in his checkered past. Some people are destined to lead, others to serve, and Midwinter always felt driven to assist in those in power. Perhaps it was inevitable that he would become one of the most influential secret infernalists in Western Immoren, playing a key role in the Great Invasion. In his former life as a senior inquisitor, Midwinter served Signar's most notorious tyrant, King Ventor Ralthorn IV, using his arcane powers and knowledge to hunt down illegal sorcerers. During the subsequent reign of King Leto, Midwinter became an outlaw wanted for past atrocities. The years were hard on him, and in time both his body and mind fractured. He contracted a severe illness and began to lose his sanity. It was in the dark time he turned in desperation to the Infernals, seeking a solution to his terminal illness. His time as an Inquisitor had given him access to forbidden lore, and soon made contact with practicing Infernalists who could instruct him. He justified his actions as a necessity to fulfill his oaths to restore Ventor as king. How this could be possible if he perished. This began a slow descent into the systematic enslavement to the Infernals. So yeah, he wanted to bring back Leto, but he wanted to bring back Ventor to the throne, but surprise, surprise, when Ventor tried to retake the throne, he got killed. So, so it was for nothing. Let's go with that the Infernals have their hooks in the mortal affairs is demonstrated by the subversion of one of the Cadoran Empire's highest-ranking nobles. Great Princess Regina Gradov was earned respect as the ruler of the Grosia Volkaikia in northern Kador. She possessed proven intelligence as well as political acumen and undeniable ruthlessness. No one suspected that most of her life she had been a secret infernalist. Rumors had began to circulate based on recent events, but before the moment she retains her title and position, she is likely to become a prime target for the Order of Illumination, as well as the Empress herself, once she abandons all pretext of secrecy. So yeah. Yeah, shit went down. Needless to say, the Empress herself was kind of mentally checked out because Vlad decided that he wanted to rather go fight on the front lines than spend time with her. And keep in mind, she was pregnant at the time. All right, somebody messaging. Okay, all right, I gotta see it. All right, just somebody messaging me on Facebook. Anyway, so she pretty much stayed in her room in the royal palace, nursing her pregnant baby bump while she had the butcher with her. And by this point, the butcher was no longer human, at least not in the mental sense. Like, Iris actually approached her, and he saw him in the shadows, and he was like, he's not a man anymore. He's just an unhinged dog, and like all he does is wait for the Empress to say kill him, and that's what he does. So he's no longer the man he once was, even if that. All right. Next we have the Order of Illumination. These are the guys that are the frontline fighters against the Infernals. They've been fighting the Infernals' threat for generations, and they are not afraid of them at the very least. They even have Thamarites in their order, because as long as you fight against the Thamarite invasion, that's all good. All right. The Order of Illumination. This is the Grand Master Gabriel Thorn. We already talked about Harlan Versh, Illuminated One. This was his time to shine. We got Galen Cormier, the Illuminated One, and various other soldiers. And they have a lot of technology at their beck and call to help fight against the infernal threat. We have the allied forces of the Morian allied forces, which consist of Constance Blaze, the Knight of the Prophet, the Precursor Knights, Thamarites joining forces. Alexia, the hot chick with the sword that turns people into undead, fought in for immoren. That's the Hermit of Hingehold. Kind of pathetic looking, but yeah. And now we have special ones called Archons. Archons are basically individuals who have been directly blessed and empowered by their god of choice to help them fight against the Infernals. Yeah, that is not creepy at all. So this is the Menite Archon, who has been powered by Menoth. We have Primals. This is the Morian Archon to fight for the Morans. This is the Thamarite Archon. We have the Dunian Archon, and of course even the Void Archons. And this is the more story stuff involving what's happening. And this details pretty much everything that leads up to the events of Oblivion, and how everyone was just caught off guard by this massive this massive invasion. And so everything's going straight to hell right now. And the Convergence actually was able to get their project running again, a Stargate, which would lead to another planet. And so word begins to spread that there's a possible way to save as many people as possible. So everyone in Immoren starts heading for for Hingehold. Every person, everyone from any kingdom, didn't matter at this point, and all their forces are beating back. And one of the coolest moments for me was let me bring it up. We had one of the most unlikely partnerships to happen in this. You got Coleman Stryker fighting hard to keep everyone alive at Hingehold, and he joins forces with none other than my boy Asphyxius. Yeah, so these two were literally fighting back to back. At first, they were like, "What the hell are you doing here?" It's like, I'm the same as you. We're fighting to survive." And these, yeah, he had some. The Butcher had some semblance of humanity left in him. Like before all this happened, there was a story in one of the No Quarter books where he got lost and injured away from his troops, and this little girl came up to him and she fed him and clothed him and did all this other stuff, but she ended up getting killed because some guys were after him, and that was kind of like the last straw for the Butcher, and he was like, "There's nothing left for me. I'm just done." And just before this, there was a campaign where Signarans, there was a massive Crix invasion in the Thornwood. So the Signarans, the Menites, the Protectorate, and the Cadorans entered in a temporary alliance with each other. And during this time period, Sorsha actually directly confronted the Butcher, and he's like, I don't even know why you're here. You killed my father." "Who was your father?" "My father was at Cardove. Then he was a traitor." Like, no, he was a part of your fucking unit, and he tried to stop you, and you killed him. So you would do everyone a favor and just die. Nobody likes you. And that was another breaking point for him. Like, shit, really? So yeah. So as I was saying, it's an all or nothing battle. Everyone is fighting hard and dying. Like, a lot of folks are dying. Like, a lot of characters that I introduced over these last couple of days, the vast 70 to 80% of them that I introduced, they're dead. They're dead. And one of the best moments of this entire thing was Stryker and Asphyxius fighting back to back, taking down Infernals one by one. And trust me, there's no betrayal in this part. They are literally fighting for their survival. And they're just going ham, just throwing hands everywhere. And they actually sort of earn each other's respect. Like, hey, for an undead guy, you're actually pretty badass. It's like, for a meat bag, that's pretty respectful. And they go down fighting. Like, Asphyxius goes down fighting. And then one of his last thoughts were, he hoped that Denegra was safe. And he dies thinking of Denegra. Drake McBain, he dies smoking a cigar. A lot of dwarves die, a lot of heroes die, a lot of warcasters die. It was all or nothing. And so a lot of characters even were able to make it into the portal, the gate, the Stargate, and were able to make it out. A few of them were able to make it out. I think Denegra was able to make it out. Ailey was able to make it out. The Harbinger was able to make it out. But all said and done, when it was all over, Immoren was utterly devastated. Like, and right now in the story, it's just a rebuild process. They're just trying to rebuild. The kingdoms are trying to rebuild what's left of Immoren after the claiming, and a lot of people died. So, like I said, Oblivion was like a big clearing of the boards. And the latest book before Privateer Press got bought out, it was called Requiem, and all it did was talk about how the Iron Kingdoms were trying to rebuild. There's not much war going on because everybody's just focused on rebuilding. Oh, and also, you'll probably like this. Vlad and Sorsha, they died together. Like, they died. Like, he tried to save her life. She tried to save his. They died in each other's arms, fighting infernals, lovers to the end. And the Empress, she kept on believing that Vladimir actually loved her. Like, he only got with her out of duty, but he's buried with Sorsha. And that should tell you how he feels. But yeah, the story as right now, it's actually split into two halves. One dealing with the fallout of the claiming on Immoren, and the other what they followed what happened to the survivors who went through the Stargate and found a new kingdom and found new worlds and shit, and just trying to create a new life for themselves in this new land, light years away from Kane. And as of now, that's all of it. That's the rundown. That is all of what. That is all. You're all caught up. This is what happened in the books. We are all caught up. But that's not all. I want to actually do some more. This won't be the last time I dig deep into the world of the Iron Kingdoms. I'm not. This is not going to be the last time I'm doing this because we got books to read. Yeah, there are books. There are several books that I have in my collection that I could possibly read to you, and I'll probably do that for a later stream. Coming up. And also I'm gonna probably have to shut down the stream for a while because we're getting some rough weather here. It's not here yet, but I think it's better for me to shut down, but not before I tell some future plans. One of the books is, of course, the Kane series of books that details Alistair Kane's fall from grace and how he founded his Hellslingers. We got the Witchfire trilogy. One of the best books in this series is called yeah, they're excellent. They're excellent stuff. And one of the books I've been reading off and on was called The Butcher of Cardove, where it details in non-sequential order the life of the butcher. Like, how did he become who he is? And it details his life with his wife Lola and why he named his axe after her. And it's tragic to see a man go from having all that he wanted in life to seeing him have nothing, and his slow descent into homicidal madness. We got a book with Rutger Shaw and Allison about them trying to make their way into way around Western Immoren. One of my favorites is Blood and Steel, the one I read through the most. This is basically the crew of the Talon fighting off some bounty hunters while dealing with a fever that has struck in the crew. Very interesting. If you like pirates, that's a good enough book. I may read that next time. Let's see. We got a book called Neogenesis, where it details exactly the process by how Thagrosh became what he is now and what led up to that. These books just go into a lot of lore and just nice little stories involved. And hell, there's even a short story in one of the books where it details the origin of Doc Killingsworth. And it's actually interesting how he got his name, but I won't tell it here. There's that. So we got there's a lot of stuff that I could get into for the future. I know you're going to be interested, Devil, and I know a lot of people are going to be interested in me reading this stuff. So I'll probably read it on stream one day if it's allowed. Got to put some content out there. Tomorrow night, rare stream for me. That'll be the last day I'll be able to earn some content so that I can create some content so I can earn some money, because I really am so very close to getting that $100 and I really need that money. So tomorrow night I will be streaming some board games. I already have a list of a small list of board games on a poll on the community tab, and I'll bring it up right quick to reminder of let's see. I gotta go to the community tab so I can remember which ones there are. All right, the poll number so far is even. It's 4 votes and it's even. It's 5 games. We got Castles of Burgundy. We got Ticket to Ride. Gloomhaven. Pathfinder Adventures, which I've played for this channel already, and the King's Dilemma. All of these games are actually physical, real games. These are just the digital versions of them. They're all great, and I hope. And I'm not sure which one I'm going to do. I'm going to do one of those 5, maybe 2. We'll see how the voting goes out and see how I feel about it. So, make sure to tune in same time tomorrow night. Got to earn some money, write up some cash. But I want to thank everyone who stopped in who enjoyed this series. I know a lot of there's a lot of folks that enjoyed this stuff on the VOD and enjoyed it listening to me read this stuff, and especially you, Devil. I'm glad that you are finally able to get into this. And again, like you said, the art is amazing. So if I get any more books or something, I can read it to you and dig more deeper into the lore and what's been going on. So there's that. But that's all for now. Tune in tomorrow. Be playing some digital board games. Hopefully, we'll get some. I'll be able to get paid. Fingers crossed. I want to get paid like Devil got paid today for an unintentional day off. So here's that. So until next time, it's been Shintigercurl, that dude in the straw hat, saying good night. And horror game stuff tomorrow night. Horror game.